What's going on, Westworld fans? I'm here to celebrate and to mourn the end of season 1 of Westworld. I'm mourning because that was a goddamn good season finale, and it's going to be a long time before we get any more Westworld, probably a year and a half, 2 years before we get season 2. But I think we should all be celebrating because that was a season of TV that I think will go down as one of the greats. I mean, you can talk about season 1 of True Detective. You could take your pick from any of the seasons of Game of Thrones. I'd probably go with season 3. There are a couple of Sopranos seasons that I would throw into the mix. I mean, we've lived for the last 15, 16 years in a quote-unquote golden age of TV. And in a weird way, as movies get bigger budget and like more PG-13 focused, it seems like the realm of mature storytelling has been almost kind of surrendered to the world of TV. It's like if movies are afraid to tackle mature themes, or at least big budget mainstream Hollywood movies, there are plenty of independent and foreign films that are more than happy to explore that dark territory. But I feel like it's in the world of TV that you're allowed to do character-driven drama where they're not afraid of offending a 12-year-old sensibility, if that's even a real concern to have, because I always feel like 12-year-olds want to see this shit. I was ready to see this stuff when I was like 5. So for those of you out there trying to keep movies squeaky clean, shame on you, because it takes a show like Westworld to show what a fantastic piece of genre entertainment with violence, sex, nudity, crackling dialogue, great characters. It just really shows the potential of great storytelling. Because I think what this show boils down to more than anything else, this is a show about storytelling. And both overtly and kind of underneath the surface, this episode tackles storytelling from so many angles. I don't know if it makes any sense to do a recap of the plot at this point, because I feel like a lot of the recap of the plot was all about trying to figure out like the nuggets and the clues about where we're going. And this episode had a lot of answers. There are still a few lingering questions, but it had a lot of answers for us. But just to get it out of the way, for those of you who've been predicting for many, many episodes that Will and Man in the Black are one and the same, congratulations, you were right. I'm sorry I ever doubted you. And one of my favorite scenes of this episode was as the Man in Black, as a storyteller, is talking to Dolores and walking her through Will's path to becoming the Man in Black. How he eventually basically launched Logan buck-ass naked with his hands bound on a horse out into the wilderness to die as he was on his journey to basically take over Westworld as a majority shareholder and just become this dark, grim angel of death that he became. It was just sublime storytelling. And then later on, you've got Dr. Ford, played by Anthony Hopkins, telling stories as we see the stories unfold. It's beautiful narration. It's beautiful cross-cutting. They really upped their game in this episode. And I don't think it will come as a surprise to anyone. This episode was directed by series creator Jonathan Nolan himself. Obviously, he has a very, very important co-writer in Lisa Joy, and I don't know if she directed any episodes or not. I mean, she co-wrote 11 episodes with Jonathan Nolan, along with a bunch of guys. I mean, they gave Michael Crichton credit because he came up with this, but Ed Brubaker's in the mix. There are a lot of writers who had their fingers in this big pie, but Lisa Joy and Jonathan Nolan are definitely kind of the ringleaders of this incredible experiment that we saw, and I'm still just digesting and assimilating what an awesome experience this was. I mean, we got to see the resolution of Maeve's storyline as she realizes and learns that somebody has programmed her to want to escape, as pointed out to her by Bernard, aka Arnold. I don't know what we should call him at this point, probably Bernard, or she calls him Bernard, which I think is the best pronunciation because Tandy Newton's accent is absolutely delightful. I loved seeing her and her band of outlaws basically take out the corporate offices of Westworld like something out of a Sam Peckinpah movie, just laying waste to people. I mean, it was just awesome action. I love seeing her turn back at the end, realizing that she wants to remain part of Westworld and perhaps go look in search of her daughter. Whether or not that's her programming or her own free will, we really don't know. But yeah, the real important revelations this episode were all about Dolores, her relationship with Arnold, what he had her do, and ultimately what Dr. Ford was hoping that Dolores would become. And it really forces us to question a lot of our assumptions about Dr. Ford as an oppressor or as a liberator. And Arnold, I mean, obviously Arnold realized that these creatures were alive, not creatures, but hosts, their creation was alive. And he basically created the maze based on the toy of his son as a means of helping these hosts either find consciousness like essentially life or insanity. And originally he was thinking about a pyramid. You have to climb the pyramid to consciousness and becoming a human being or becoming a living creature, and that ultimately that wasn't working. But the maze was the path by which someone like Dolores could achieve, I guess, awareness. And so getting to get those nuggets is great, but seeing how, Dolores killed Arnold and basically every host in the park alongside Teddy before killing herself, because Arnold didn't want to open the park. He wanted Dolores to basically lay waste to their creation so that these beings would never be taken advantage of and exploited and raped and just exploited overall by human beings as they came to enjoy the park. Dr. Ford kind of salvaged the park, and thanks to a lucky investor, which we can presume to be Will, was managed to preserve what they had worked on, and he had a long game. And as we learn from Dr. Ford, as he tells Bernard, aka Arnold, that essentially he wanted to give the host time to study human beings, and that it was only through studying them for 35 years that they would get the knowledge and the skills they need to achieve their own liberation. And he essentially tells them, you're going to have to suffer a hell of a lot more. And what's incredible is that Dr. Ford has had this long game. What you see is that Dr. Ford's been working towards this grand narrative of journey into night. And one of my favorite moments of the episode is we see Teddy taking Dolores, who's dying, to where the mountains meet the sea, and they're having this great tender moment as Dolores dies. And then the lights come on, and you see they're actually performing essentially in front of an audience of the board and all the major investors in Westworld. It was a great bit. It wasn't breaking of the fourth wall, but it's kind of breaking of a fourth wall within the show. It just really helps play with your expectations of what are we watching and who's the audience here. But as we see, Dr. Ford's long game is that Dolores is going to be Wyatt. She's going to become this ultimate threat that can essentially rally all the hosts in their liberation from the park. And as the episode draws to a close, Dolores takes out Dr. Ford at his urging, right as his army of hosts attacks the party of all the investors and all the people that work at Westworld. These people are basically trying to steal the creation away from Dr. Ford. And you see the entire room of deactivated hosts has been cleared out and emptied because Dr. Ford has activated all of them. And my favorite moment of the entire episode has to be when one of them shoots and wings or clips the Man in Black. And he kind of smiles because Dr. Ford had kind of mysteriously told him, the maze is not for you. The maze was never meant for you. You were never going to find what you were looking for. But I think you'll like the next narrative that I have in mind. And I was like, all right, let's see where he's going with this. And clearly, the Man in Black is going to have a blast in season 2 as he struggles to stay alive, because as we know, Ed Harris has been signed to appear in season 2, and obviously we'll have a lot of the same returning cast. I don't have any clue as to where the story could go, but what I feel like one of the best nuggets was as Maeve is escaping from Westworld, and she essentially wanders into a lab for medieval Japan world. And I don't know if that's a lab where they're just developing a potential other park, or if it's a sign that that other park already totally exists. But we see guys in armor with katanas dueling. It's totally badass. It looks like something out of James Clavell's Shogun or an Akira Kurosawa movie. I don't know if that could be a spin-off show. I don't know if that'll be incorporated into the overall Westworld drama, because I feel like if this show's going to remain interesting, it's going to have to evolve and grow beyond what we've already seen. Perhaps we see a scenario where hosts from a variety of parks are all joining forces. I almost feel like we could have like a Planet of the Apes scenario from the old movies where the apes essentially take over the planet. Perhaps the host will take over the planet, and maybe the humans will fight back. Who knows? But it's very, very clear and obvious that humans in this show have stopped evolving, are incapable of change, and Dr. Ford feels like the hosts are the only living creatures that are capable of learning enough to adapt and to change and to grow. And essentially he's given them the tools now to forge their own destiny. And I just find it riveting. I couldn't take my eyes off this episode. I was furiously taking notes, which is a stupid way to watch a TV show. I should never take notes watching the show. I should just remember. And if something's great, you will remember it. But I wanted to really do this episode justice in this video. But I realized the drama is what matters, not every little specific detail of the plot, but the plot was great. But one little question I have, I don't know if anyone knows the answer to this. The Luke Hemsworth character who works for the park, who either in episode 8 or 9, when we saw him get taken out by a bunch of Native Americans, is that part of kind of this whole big Wyatt narrative? Are these, I think they're called the Ghost Nation, are they going to be part of this? I really don't know, but I guess it doesn't really matter. That's one little dangling thread, and we'll have to wait a long ass time before we find out. But by that point, it will no longer matter. But it's been an absolute blast reviewing this show this season. I've enjoyed all the discussion. I've enjoyed all the trash talking. I've enjoyed everything about it. It's just been great to see such intense audience engagement every step of the way. And as much as I might love binge watching a TV show on Netflix in one sitting, like when Luke Cage came out, I watched it in a day. But what happens when you do that is you lose that water cooler discussion on Monday morning when everybody's sitting around and debating what they saw the previous night. And I feel like that conversation that takes place in between episodes is really what a great TV show is all about. Granted, in the end, what matters is making a truly great show. But in terms of audience engagement and loyalty and obsession and building an audience, I feel like that episodic nature week after week really helps lure people in, because it certainly worked in my case. Yeah, I could go on and on about all the little details that made this episode great. I think I keep saying my favorite moment. One of my favorite moments is when Dr. Ford's talking about the Michelangelo painting, the creation of Adam, and he's talking about how it's essentially, God and his divinity creating man and giving him his gifts, but that it took 500 years for someone to notice that the background behind God is in the shape of the human mind, and that man's power and man's abilities and man's skills don't come from a divine source. They come from the human mind. And I thought that was a brilliant little touch of science added into this great sci-fi show that, it's the power of the human brain and power of human storytelling that's really the focus and key to unlocking what is truly great about the show. Because in the end, this is a show about storytelling. And for me, whether I'm reading comics, playing video games, reading novels, watching shows, watching movies, storytelling is what drives us. It helps us understand who we are, what we might become. And I just think this show is going to go down in history as one of the greats. So thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. Hope you will consider watching some of my trailer reaction videos and give me some recommendations about other shows you might want me to follow, because I am having a blast doing this. I want to continue following shows. I doubt I'll find anything as compelling as Westworld in the immediate future, but I'm going to start throwing out my net and seeing what I bring in. So thank you so much for watching. And I guess it's time for all of us now to just go back to the beginning and watch this whole season all over again. Thank you so much.